Chapter 1. The dinner I thought was about me. Birthdays were never really about cake in my family, they were about appearances. About proving we were still close, still functional, still normal. And that night, my birthday dinner was supposed to be one of those moments. I remember standing in front of my bathroom mirror, smoothing my dress with both hands, telling myself not to expect too much. I'd learned that lesson early. Still, there was this small, stubborn part of me that hoped, maybe this year would be different. I was turning 32, not a milestone anyone made a big deal out of, but not insignificant either. I had a steady job, my own apartment, no scandals, no disasters. I had done everything right. At least, everything my parents had always told me mattered. I wrapped a loose curl back behind my ear and forced a smile at my reflection. It's just dinner. I told myself. Don't make it bigger than it is. The restaurant was one my parents loved, warm lighting, white tablecloths, the kind of place where birthdays were announced quietly, not sung loudly. When I walked in, my mom was already seated, my dad scrolling on his phone, and my sister laughing about something I'd clearly missed. There she is, my mom said, smiling just enough to be polite. Happy birthday didn't come right away. It rarely did. My sister looked incredible, as always. Perfect hair, effortless confidence, that familiar ease she carried into every room like she owned it. She hugged me quickly, distracted, already halfway into another story. Dinner started the way it always did, small talk. Updates. My parents asking my sister about her plans, her goals, her next move. Questions came easily when they were about her. When my dad finally turned to me, it was to ask, "So, work's still the same?" I nodded. "Yeah. Still the same." And that was that. I tried not to let it sting. I focused on the table, the clink of glasses, the hum of other conversations around us. I told myself I was being dramatic. I told myself gratitude mattered more than attention. Then the gifts came. My mom reached under the table first, not toward me, but toward my sister. She placed a carefully wrapped box in front of her, smiling wide. "We wanted you to have this early." My sister's eyes lit up. She laughed, already pulling at the ribbon. I sat there, hands folded in my lap, watching. Inside the box was something expensive. Thoughtful. Personal. I could tell by the way my parents leaned in, the way my dad looked proud. My sister gasped, covering her mouth, tears forming instantly. "Oh my God," she said. "You didn't have to." But of course, they always did. More gifts followed. Another bag. Another envelope. Each one met with excitement, gratitude, praise. My sister was glowing, and my parents were basking in it, soaking up her reaction like proof they were good, generous, loving. I waited. Finally, my mom slid something toward me across the table. A small bag. No wrapping paper. No build-up. "There you go," she said casually. Inside was something simple. Practical. The kind of thing you buy when you don't want to show up empty-handed. I smiled. I said thank you. I meant it, at least, I meant the part where I didn't want to cause a scene, but something inside me tightened. My sister glanced at my gift, then back at hers, and laughed lightly. "You're so easy," she said. "You don't need much." I didn't answer. The waiter came by, wishing me a happy birthday with more enthusiasm than my own family had shown all night. I smiled again. I kept smiling. I was good at that. Then my dad leaned back in his chair and said it. "Be grateful." Just like that, not gently. Not kindly. Not as advice. As a correction. "Be grateful," he repeated, when I didn't respond right away. "This dinner isn't cheap, you know. It's not a competition." Something about the way he said it, sharp, final, made the table go quiet. I felt heat rise to my face. My throat tightened, but I swallowed it down. Years of practice had taught me how. "I am grateful," I said softly. My mom nodded, relieved. "Good. That's all that matters." Conversation moved on. Just like that, they talked about my sister's future. About her next big step. About how exciting things were going to be for her. I sat there, nodding along, cutting my food into smaller and smaller pieces, feeling something shift deep inside me. It wasn't anger. It was clarity. For the first time, I stopped asking myself why. I stopped wondering what I could do better, what I could change, how I could finally earn the same care. Because in that moment, on my birthday, at my own dinner, I finally understood something I'd been avoiding my whole life. This wasn't accidental, this wasn't temporary, this was who they were and I was done pretending it wasn't. Chapter 2, the moment favoritism stopped being subtle. The drive home from the restaurant was quiet, not the peaceful kind of quiet, the heavy kind. The kind that presses against your chest and dares you to say something, knowing full well you won't. My parents rode in the front seat. My sister sat beside me in the back, scrolling through her phone, occasionally smiling at messages from friends who were congratulating her on the gifts she'd already posted online. Best parents ever. The caption read. I stared out the window, watching streetlights blur past, replaying my dad's words over and over in my head. Be grateful. He hadn't said it to teach me humility. He'd said it to shut me down. When we got to my parents' house, my sister hopped out of the car, still buzzing with excitement. I'm going to open the rest inside, she said, already halfway to the door. The rest? I asked before I could stop myself. My mom paused, keys in hand. Oh, yes. There's a few more things we didn't bring to the restaurant. I nodded slowly. Of course there were. Inside, the house smelled like candles and lemon cleaner. Familiar. Comforting. A place that had once felt like safety, now it felt like a stage. They gathered in the living room, my sister sitting in the center of the couch like she belonged there, which, clearly, she did. My mom handed her another gift. Then another. Each one carefully wrapped. Each one met with excitement, laughter, sometimes tears. I stood near the doorway, unsure where to put myself. Come sit, my mom said eventually, noticing me hovering. I sat on the armchair, hands folded again. Waiting again. After the last gift was opened, my sister leaned back, overwhelmed. I don't even know what to say, she laughed. This is too much. My dad smiled proudly. You deserve it. The words landed harder than anything else that night. I felt something crack, not loudly, not dramatically, but deeply. You know, my sister said casually, glancing at me, not everyone needs this much. Some people are just simpler. She smiled when she said it. Like it was a compliment. I felt my jaw tighten. I didn't say I needed anything. I know, she replied quickly. I'm just saying, some people don't require as much investment. Investment, that was the word. My mom laughed lightly. Exactly. Everyone's different. And that's okay. I looked at her. Is it? She hesitated. Just a second. Then smiled. Of course it is. But the truth was already sitting in the room with us, undeniable now. This wasn't about effort, this wasn't about need, this was about value. And they had decided, a long time ago, how much I was worth. I thought about all the birthdays before this one. The excuses. The comparisons. The times I'd been told, you're older, you understand, or she needs more support right now. There was always a reason. But standing there, watching my sister surrounded by evidence of her importance, I finally saw the pattern clearly. Favoritism wasn't loud in my family. It was polished. Rationalized. Smoothed over with phrases like be grateful and don't make it a big deal. They never called me less, they just treated me like I was. Later that night, as I got ready to leave, my dad walked me to the door. You were quiet tonight, he said. I was listening, I replied. He frowned. You need to stop taking things so personally. I looked at him then, really looked at him, and realized something else. They didn't see me as someone who could be hurt, they saw me as someone who could absorb. I'm fine, I said, and for the first time, that wasn't a lie meant to protect them. It was a boundary forming. As I drove back to my apartment, the city lights felt sharper, clearer. My phone buzzed with messages from friends wishing me happy birthday, warm, genuine, uncomplicated. I felt tears come then. Not because of what had happened, but because of what I finally accepted. I wasn't invisible because I hadn't earned love. I was invisible because they needed someone to be, and I had played that role for far too long. That night, I didn't make a vow out loud. I didn't promise revenge or confrontation or dramatic change. I did something quieter. I stopped hoping, and that changed everything. Chapter 3, Silence is where the pattern finally spoke. The days after my birthday were strangely quiet. No follow-up messages from my parents. No, did you get home safe? No acknowledgement that anything uncomfortable had happened at all. That silence wasn't new. What was new was the way I heard it. I went back to my routine: work, gym, grocery store, the normal rhythm of a life that looked stable from the outside. But underneath it, something had shifted. A low hum of awareness followed me everywhere, like once you notice a sound, you can't unhear it. I started replaying moments from my childhood without the usual excuses attached: the times my sister cried and everyone rushed in, the times I stayed quiet and was praised for being easy. The way I was always told I was strong, never comforted, just admired from a distance. Strength, I realized, had been assigned to me, not earned, and it came with a cost. One evening after work, my mom called. Her tone was light, casual, as if nothing had happened. "Your sister's thinking of making a big change," she said. "We're really excited for her." I waited. She didn't ask how I was. "That's great," I replied. "She might need some help," my mom continued. "Emotionally. Financially. You understand." There it was again: I understand. That phrase had followed me my entire life, quietly instructing me to step back, to shrink, to make room. "Yes," I said. "I understand." After the call ended, I sat on my couch staring at the blank TV screen, feeling something click into place with startling clarity. They didn't lean on me because they trusted me. They leaned on me because they assumed I would never say no. That night, I pulled out an old photo album. I hadn't looked at it in years. Birthday pictures. Holiday mornings. Family trips. In almost every photo, my sister was centered, laughing, holding something new, being celebrated, and me, I was always just slightly off to the side. Smiling. Present. Peripheral. I had spent so long convincing myself that love didn't need to look equal to be real, but patterns don't lie. The more I looked, the more I saw it wasn't just favoritism, it was delegation. My sister received care, I received responsibility. She was protected from disappointment, I was trained to absorb it, and somehow, I had mistaken that imbalance for maturity. A few days later, my sister texted me: "Still so obsessed with your birthday, ****, you know mom and dad didn't mean anything by it, I stared at the message for a long time, then I typed back: "I'm not upset. I just see things clearly now, ***. She didn't respond. That silence felt different. Lighter. At work, I found myself speaking up more. Not louder, just more honestly. I stopped volunteering to fix things that weren't my responsibility. I stopped smoothing over discomfort before it reached anyone else, and something unexpected happened. The world didn't fall apart, people adjusted. It made me wonder how much of my family's balance had depended on my quiet compliance. One night, lying in bed, I admitted something to myself that felt both painful and freeing. If I kept showing up the same way, nothing would ever change, not because they couldn't change, but because they didn't need to. I had made it too easy for them not to. That realization hurt more than the birthday dinner ever could, because it meant the problem wasn't just them. It was the role I had accepted to survive, and now that I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. Chapter 4, The distance that finally gave me power. Distance didn't happen all at once. It wasn't a dramatic cutoff or a confrontation that ended in slammed doors and raised voices. It was quieter than that. More subtle. Almost invisible to anyone who wasn't paying close attention, which meant, at first, no one noticed at all. I stopped calling just to check in. I stopped filling silences with updates about my life. I stopped explaining myself. When my mom called, I answered, but I didn't perform. I didn't overcorrect her moods or anticipate her needs. I let conversations end naturally, even when they felt unfinished, especially then. At first, it felt wrong. Like I was breaking some unspoken rule. I had been raised to believe closeness required effort, constant, self-sacrificing effort. That love was something you maintained by being useful, agreeable, available. So when I stopped doing those things, guilt followed close behind. But then something unexpected happened. The guilt faded, and in its place came relief. I noticed how calm my apartment felt when I wasn't bracing for the next call. How much lighter my chest felt when I didn't replay conversations afterward. wondering what I could have said differently. The space gave me room to breathe. My sister noticed first. She called one afternoon, voice sharp with irritation disguised as concern. "You've been distant." "I'd been busy," I said. "With what?" she asked. My first instinct was to explain. To justify. To soften the tension. Instead, I said, "My life." She went quiet. Then laughed lightly. "Okay. Don't get weird." But something in her tone had shifted. She wasn't used to this version of me, neither were my parents. A week later, my dad asked if I could help my sister with something important. I listened, waited, and then said something I'd never said before. "I can't." There was a pause. "A long one." "You can't," he repeated slowly, like he was testing the words. "That's right," I said. He sighed. "You're being difficult lately." I almost smiled. Difficult, that was the word people used when they could no longer access you the way they used to. "I'm just being honest," I replied. After the call, my hands were shaking, but not from fear, from adrenaline, from the realization that I had just chosen myself, and the world hadn't collapsed. The more I pulled back, the more clearly I saw how transactional our dynamic had been. When I stopped giving, they stopped reaching, not out of concern, but confusion. They didn't know how to interact with me if I wasn't filling a role. That hurt, but it also told me everything I needed to know. One evening, alone in my kitchen, I caught my reflection in the dark window. I looked older somehow. Not tired, steadier. I realized I wasn't angry anymore. Anger had required hope. What I felt now was acceptance, not the kind that excuses behavior, but the kind that stops expecting people to become who they've never been. My family wasn't cruel, they were consistent, and I had finally stopped trying to earn what they weren't offering. That distance didn't make me lonely. It made me free. For the first time, I wasn't reacting. I was choosing, and that choice was changing everything. Chapter 5. What that humiliation finally gave me. A few months after my birthday, I realized something had changed, not around me, but inside me. I was sitting alone at a small cafe on a Sunday morning, sunlight spilling across the table, when the thought landed with surprising calm. They don't define me anymore. It wasn't dramatic. It didn't come with tears or anger or closure conversations. It came with peace. I thought back to that birthday dinner, the white tablecloth, my sister opening gift after gift, my dad's voice cutting through the moment with those two words. Be grateful. For a long time, I'd believed that sentence was meant to shrink me. Now I understood it had done the opposite. That humiliation hadn't broken me. It had clarified everything, because humiliation only works when you still want approval from the people holding the power. And that night, something in me quietly let go of that desire. I stopped measuring my worth by how much space I was allowed to take at their table. I started building my own. I invested more in friendships that felt mutual, where birthdays were remembered, where care didn't have to be earned through silence. I let people show up for me, and I stopped apologizing for needing it. Work opportunities opened that I might have ignored before. I applied for things I once would have told myself I wasn't ready for. Not because I suddenly became fearless, but because I no longer needed permission. Even my body felt different. Lighter. Less tense. Like it had been bracing for impact my whole life and had finally been told it could stand down. My family noticed the change eventually. My mom asked once, cautiously, "You seem different. Are you okay?" I smiled. "I am." She nodded, unsure what to do with that answer. They never apologized for the birthday, they never acknowledged the imbalance, and that was okay. I wasn't waiting anymore. The truth is, favoritism doesn't always look like cruelty. Sometimes it looks like indifference wrapped in politeness. Sometimes it hides behind phrases like "don't be dramatic" or "you understand." But once you see it, really see it, you're no longer trapped by it. You stop asking, "Why am I not enough?" and you start asking, "Why am I still offering myself to people who can't see me?" That question changed the direction of my life. I didn't cut my family off completely. I didn't declare boundaries out loud. I simply lived differently, and in doing so, I taught myself the lesson they never could. Gratitude doesn't mean accepting less than you deserved. It means recognizing when you've outgrown a room, and having the courage to leave it quietly. That birthday dinner wasn't the moment I was humiliated. It was the moment I was released. Released from hoping, released from proving, released from waiting to be chosen. I chose myself, and that choice still feels like the best gift I've ever received.